Okay, major big soldering iron now in hand. So I've been cleaning up the rest of these. This is like a 100-watt thing, and it certainly does the job a treat. So I've been cleaning up the rest of those areas where I could not get the solder off, the excess solder, and as you can see, you probably can't see it. There's one here where even at the point of manufacture they didn't put the solder where it should be. They just put it straight onto the chassis. Anyway, it's coming along, so we're getting there with all that stuff. To clean off the flux, I'm using this stuff. It's called Flux Clean, oddly enough. And I just thought it was interesting because there were more environmental warnings on this than pretty much any of the other products I've seen. So definitely hazardous to the environment, it says. So, but it you can't really use this on regular circuit boards because it tends to take the mask off as well. But for heavy duty stuff, like I'm doing on this chassis, it works just a treat. Another task I've been working on is, again on the metalwork front, is for the 3 grommets that mount the speaker. You need the little metal insert that enables you to tighten it up without collapsing the grommet. So I've had to make up 3 of those little tubular inserts, and basically the way I did that was I got some 6mm steel tubing, stuck it in the vise and cut it off to the right length, then stick a little bit in the vise, turn the vise on its side, file it off nice and flat, and repeat 3 times, as they say. So I now have the full kit of pieces I need for mounting speaker when speaker arrives. Some eBay parts have arrived, so at this stage I have a full kit of valves now, and the field coil speaker arrived. Actually it looks unused, so it's a new old stock, I guess, and it came in what looks very much like its original packaging. The field coil resistance is not the same as the standard one fitted in this set, so there'll be a little bit of tweaking to do to the power supply and whatever to get it all going properly, but we should be okay. Now that I have this, I can make the baffle, because there's a baffle that goes all the way around here. And I have some metal work to do, because the mounting holes here do not actually align with the holes in the chassis. They're just slightly out. And so I just temporarily put a couple of 3mm bolts here to just to hold it, but needs 4mm bolts, and they don't align at all. So I'm going to have to make an adapter plate that goes underneath here. That's going to let me move the speaker just a little bit forward, so I have clearance behind the main chassis here at the bottom. And then I have to build an additional little plate underneath here so I can fix it, the speaker, to the 3rd mounting point at the bottom here. And then I have 4 holes that I can use to mount the baffle. Yeah, so that looks like it's going to work. There's also, you won't be able to see them from here, but there are 2 holes on the spider cage here for the speaker, which I can use to make some additional brackets so I can mount the audio output transformer. And then I'd say we'll be good. So a bit of metal work to be getting on with, which I'll get started on. So the adapter plate, I'm going to use basically some aluminium strip, which is about 2 mil thick plus, so it's good and rigid, and that'll support the weight of the speaker. And then I'll use something much lighter for around the front, because it won't be taking a lot of weight. So yes, another step forward. Since metal filings and speakers don't go together very well, and there's always a risk I'll damage it, I thought I'd protect the speaker as best I can while I get on with the metalwork. So hopefully the holes are covered, except these two, which I'll need to have access to for building the bracket for the audio output transformer. Another piece of good news on my side here is I found some additional documentation on the set. So I have a component overlay of sorts. Where this is really helpful is in all these mica caps here on the waveband selector area, because now I can find which of these capacitors is which on the circuit diagram, which is the only piece of documentation I had up to now, and check out the values, because as I've said before, these look to be in really bad condition, so I'm not really sure I trust any of them until at least I can find some way to test them, because once this thing is all back together, it's going to be rather painful trying to change them then. Anyway, so that's a piece of good news. Additional documentation always helps. I've started painting the white stripes on the cab. There's probably the technique I use is obviously I start with a very fine brush, and I paint so that there's too much of it. Basically, it overflows each side of the stripe. Then when it goes off, I scrape it usually with something like a toothpick to line it up correctly with the edges. So essentially I scrape off the excess, then clean it up with a Q-tip, very lightly soaked in alcohol. So I don't know if this will show up on the camera, but this is kind of messy because there's excess paint. And then down the side here, this has been cleaned up. And so it's not perfect. It's deathly boring. It takes forever to do. And so yeah, it's sort of a bit of a Zen meditation thing, really. You just have to knuckle down and realize it's going to take forever to get done. So that's where it's at. Hopefully, I say I'm pretty pleased with how that bit's turned out. So hopefully the rest will be okay. And that'll be that task done. What I actually use for color is these color pigments for water-based finish, because they're extremely opaque. And even though this might look white against such a dark background, it's actually white with brown tint in it to make it effectively an off-white color. And so there's lots of different solutions, I guess, that'll work. This is the one that works for me because it's easier to scrape off the excess using this stuff. So about 3 hours later, the white stripes or the off-white stripes are basically done. My method has a couple of limitations. One is it relies very much on clean edges, so you can when you scrape off the excess paint, that you get a nice clean edge. And of course there are places on this set, I don't know if I can if you can see it, but there are places on the set where it's damaged, and so you can't really scrape it off cleanly. And then there are other places where maybe the paint doesn't adhere to the surface. Maybe I didn't clean it very well, so when you scrape it off, it takes more off than you want to remove. But I can always console myself by saying, well, I don't really want it in factory new condition. A little bit of aging is not going to be out of place here. So there we go. That's how I do the white striping. I couldn't really come up with a way of masking off. That seems to work, and it looks reasonably okay. So we'll call that done. Started looking at the control knobs because I could see quite clearly that on this one here the plastic insert has shrunk and separated, which happened quite a lot in plastics in the 40s and 50s. And so, and one end of this plastic strip is lifted so it's not glued down, so I'll refit that. And I've had a go at making a very tiny little piece of plastic which is as close to the color as I can get, and then glue it into the gap here so that hopefully this will be okay. So that's the plan for that one. This one looks okay, no real damage to it or anything. However, what I just realized is this one here doesn't actually have a plastic ring on it at all. It's been lost totally, and somebody just put a cream paint in the bottom of the groove. So not quite sure what I'm going to do with this one, but yeah, it's I'm not sure I'll get a piece of plastic that would do that, but we'll see. So for the moment we'll concentrate on getting this one sorted out. So I've tacked in a small tiny little piece of plastic which is very close to the color, maybe not exactly the same but very close, with some very light super glue in around it. We'll let that dry up nice and hard and then cut it off flush, and hopefully it'll be good enough. Not sure what I'm going to do about the other one though.